Okay, let's get underway here. So as I mentioned, Terry is a master electrician, whatever, 17 years experience in solar, family business in electricity. And he's also an expert in the design and installation of solar and battery energy storage systems, BESS. That's a critical word these days. We have personal BESS systems and we have utility scale. And in Mississippi Mills, we now have one BESS utility scale battery. We have had 4 applications in this region for utility scale ones that have been rejected by misunderstanding, misinformation. So please keep your ears and eyes open for more BESS systems on the utility scale, because they're going to help us here in Lanark County provide sufficient power when we need it. Okay, Terry.
Yep.
Come on up. So, Terry's going to speak for roughly about sort of an hour-ish. Feel free to ask some questions through. He's very good at taking those, but if you can keep your question until the end of his presentation, then we'll have a richer conversation with those questions. Yes? Okay, fire away.
Could you send us a copy of the presentation?
Our
email address?
Okay, so I think we can do that. We frequently do that, but the other thing is that we are recording this, and so we will be posting it on our YouTube channel, and we actually have some really good presentations on our YouTube channel already. So please do look that up. Again, just Climate Network Lanark. And so I don't know, a week or so, and it'll probably be up there, something like that. Anyway, okay. There we go.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyways,
Terry.
yes, my name is Terry Lukes, and from TLC Solar. TLC Solar is a division within Joustra & Sons Electric, and that's our electrical contracting company. That's where you get the master licensed electrician. So I've been doing electrical for quite a while. I'll get you to, oh, is it gonna? Hey, not bad. But anyways, yeah, so electrical contracting, just happened to have a passion for solar. So got into it well over 17 years ago. A little bit of solar, a little bit of wind, a little bit of battery. And I can tell you from those days to what we see now, there's quite a difference. And I think that's why there's so many people here today, because yeah, solar and battery, it's just, yeah, the prices have come down. That's kind of what this slide is saying a little bit. We've got rising electricity costs. We have the interest in being independent from the grid. I know there's many people who are kind of a little bit worried about how, you know, the grid is being taken care of and being expanded and if it can keep up. And then of course we have the fact that with solar and battery, if the grid does fail, we can get through those power outages. So that's really why a lot of people are really looking at solar and battery. It's also adding value to the home. It can lower the cost of electricity, but at the same time, it's doing good for the environment by reducing fossil fuels. A lot of, and I think I've seen a lot of electric vehicles pulling into the parking lot as well. Solar and battery with EV is something that's very, yeah, connected. So many reasons to think about solar and battery. We'll just call it battery. It's also a BESS because it's a battery electric storage system. ESS is also a terminology that we're talking about when we're looking at batteries. But that's just why I guess I'm here, is I'm going to just give you a very quick and simple bit of a rundown on we'll try that. There we go. So yeah, I'm going to try to project the best I can. I've never been accused of being a very loud person. So that's why I'm trying to stay away from in front and stop looking at that. And I'm going to look at this a little bit more. So first thing, we'll just cover some basics on solar panels. From 17 years ago, 15 years ago, the panels have really, really improved. Already 15 years ago, when the feed-in tariff program came into Ontario, we saw quite a difference in solar technology. Up to that point, it was more kind of RV solar, pretty low grade quality solar panels. Trying to keep the cost down, of course, is the hardest part. But as soon as the feed-in tariff program came in, there was rules and regulations and with the program, which really enhanced. We needed to install specific types of solar, a little bit of Canadian content, but also the solar panels became A grade. We call them A grade panels with really good warranties already right from the start. So that was already 17 years ago. If we look at today, we're even moving right along with better quality panels. The warranties, which were 20, are now 30. The efficiency is much better. The way the panels see the sun is much better. Used to be that we really had to have that panel right in front of the sun. That's seeing it on the angles a lot more, and that's why the efficiency is also improving. The look has improved as well. Back in the good old days, it would have been a silver frame with a blue freckled kind of solar. Not so nice to look at. Today, like the picture here, black on black, it blends nicely into, a dark roof. So it's not sticking out as bad as it used to. So that can be a really good thing. I know for most of my interactions with clients looking at solar, there's always one, usually it's more the women who really concern about the looks. So that does help with the looks, especially if it's on the front of your home. But again, warranty is improving, the efficiency is improving. The interesting thing about the solar panels, that line there at the bottom, is that we're now 25-year and we're already pushing into 30-year. And that is that in 30 years of the panel working hard up on the roof producing power, it still needs to, at that 30-year mark, produce 87%. I'm going to have Sue, Sadie. Yeah, anyway, so panels at their 30-year mark need to produce still 87% of their nameplate rating. So if it's a 500-watt panel, it's almost, only about a 13% drop after 30 years of working hard up on the roof or wherever it is located. Again, the common panels, black on black, because of the aesthetics. The silver frame panels are a little bit more commercial. We still have lots of silver frame panels. But the other cool thing about solar panels is bifacial. So we now have panels that make power from the front side where the sun is shining, but they'll also catch reflective light and then produce power on the back side. The bifacial technology has really kind of flooded the market. It used to cost a little bit more for a bifacial panel, but most bifacial panels cost the same as a traditional one side producing panel. So yeah, that's basically the panels, I think. What did I do? Yeah, so bifacial, a little bit of a diagram for it. Bifacial really has a big advantage, not so much on a roof, like on a flat or on a pitched roof, because most of the time we're mounting the panels very tight to the roof. There's not a whole lot of extra reflection, but again, because they cost pretty much the same as a traditional panel, we will put bifacials on the roof. But where they really make a big difference is ground mount. Yeah, the ground mount, of course, it's going to be, fairly far away from the ground. There's things that you can do with the ground where the ground mounts are to help with reflection. But when we put a bifacial on a ground mount, we can gain anywhere from 7 to 15% in production. The ground mount, where it can really be effective as well, is that when we are looking to put solar in on a home, sometimes the roof is not very, the best place to put it, just because there's multiple gables. It's not, oriented to solar south very well. So then a ground mount can become a pretty good option. The nice thing about ground mount is that we can orientate the array perfectly to solar south. And then with the bifacial panels today, we don't really need to worry about a tilting ground mount. We can just put it on a 45-degree angle. It will still shed snow for the most part, and that 45-degree angle is perfect for catching the reflective sunlight to the back. And by doing that, we can often save ourselves a few panels to keep the ground mount array a little bit smaller. So yeah. What else did I say? Performance, installation. Yeah, so I think any questions at the end or whatever, if you have questions on bifacials, I can answer those. This is just a simple little slide to show how the reflecting of the sun, of the rays, when we have a very black background, it absorbs, whereas if we have a lighter background, it's going to reflect. And so that's why basically solar cells are dark, and the darker the better. When we're looking at putting solar on a home, whether it's on the roof or on the ground, solar is DC power. And most of our installations today, we're dealing with a grid connection. And that means we kind of would like to be able to use that power in our home. So we want to transform it into AC power. And so that's where the inverters come in. So that's just a simple picture of an inverter, string inverter. But the inverter is the hardest working part of this system. Solar panels, to be honest, out of the thousands and thousands of panels that I've been installing and working with, hardly ever do we have a panel problem. The inverters also, if you're buying a good quality inverter, it'll have at least a 10-year warranty. Quite often it can be extended to 15 years. And out of the hundreds and hundreds, pushing to thousands of inverters that we've installed, they quite often will get to their warranty and beyond. So we have hundreds of systems that we've installed that are at least 15 years old. And the majority of those inverters are still working in the field. So again, pretty good products. It is important to pay attention to warranties on any products that you're buying for solar and battery. If it's not a really good warranty, it probably means the product's a little bit cheap, which if you're thinking about long-term, which we believe solar and battery is, you probably don't want to buy a product that has a very short warranty. So the picture that I showed before, and even here, we're looking at a string inverter, but there's also micro inverters. So those are the two big types or ways that we invert when we're designing solar. So we have string inverters, which are bigger, bulkier, usually like this picture, down more on ground level, whereas the micro inverters are up on the roof behind the actual panels. There's pros and cons to both. The string inverters, if they fail, your system will, either be fully out or the majority of it will be, not producing. However, because it's on the ground, it's easy to access. and you don't need like a 2-person team to climb up on the roof and try to find a microinverter underneath the panel. Many pros and cons when you're considering, the 2 different inverters. The microinverter, it's always been a trick. It's being installed in one of the harshest environments that it ever could. It's sitting between a panel and a roof where it's very, very hot. We have seen a lot of microinverters fail in comparison to string inverters overall. But the nice thing about a microinverter is it gives you at the panel detailed information in production, whereas the string inverter is only showing the overall production of whatever's connected to it. So those are some of the things that we will think about. The microinverters can also help us with shade because it's dealing with the panel individually. If there is shading from a big tree, let's say, or whatever, the microinverters could help us produce a little bit better versus a string inverter. Today, though, with string inverters, we do have what's called an optimizer that can be installed into the string, and it will act like a microinverter in that it compartmentalizes the individual panels. And an optimizer, it's not doing the same as a microinverter. It's not transforming power, so it's not working as hard, so therefore possibly the failure rate might be a little less. But again, if you have any questions on that, you can, if you're looking at microinverters or string inverters and have questions, by all means, you can ask. So that's the difference there. The microinverter just showing you a picture of where it would be located underneath the panels up on a roof. If you're using microinverters on the ground, well, that's pretty easy accessibility. And so that's a good spot for them. They will be a lot cooler on the ground. And we have seen in our history of service of these types of equipment, the microinverter will potentially, it shows that it actually does a lot better where it can be a little bit cooler. So a ground mount is really good. And again, with that microinverter, you're getting at the panel detailed production versus seeing production from the whole string. Mm-hmm.
Are there any kind of hybrid systems where the panels just can report their level of output, but inversion doesn't take place, except in the string?
Yeah, that would be an optimizer. Yeah, so if you're using optimizers, yeah, it will report the production, but it's not inverting it at that point. Yep. Yep. All right, so I know I kind of touched on this a little bit previous, just because I'm not a professional speaker and my thoughts get a little bit jumbled. Yeah.
Sorry, can we just ask for the sake of the recording on YouTube? If somebody asks,
Mm.
can you repeat it?
Oh, okay.
So we have it recorded and then,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very good. Will do. Just step in and remind me if I don't. So roof versus ground again. I will touch a little bit more on it. It's not, ground mount can't just be installed in everybody's backyard. If you're more rural, you probably have the property and space to do it. If you're more in town, that can be a real challenge. There are a little bit of rules. It's different for every municipality on, how tight you can be to the property line, stuff like that. So there's a little bit of things to look into. However, for engineering, when we're on a roof, we do need an engineer to look at that roof and make sure it's strong enough to support the solar. Whereas on the ground, most of our ground mounts are installed in such a way that we're not putting in a firm foundation, so we don't need the same building permit and engineering. The ground mount, again, the beautiful thing about it is we can face it perfectly solar south, put it on a 45-degree angle, use bifacial panels, and get some really good production. The ground mount is really good if you are considering a battery and really would like that independence, and you are thinking about what happens in the wintertime. If my panels are up on a roof, that's kind of maybe not very steep slope, and it's covered in snow, how much generation am I going to get from my solar panels? Not much. So the ground mount can help with that as well because it's very accessible, and that 45-degree tilt for most of the snow, it will It will slide off. So the drawback to the ground mount, though, is that there's a lot more upfront cost because we do have to do quite a bit of groundwork. We do have to somehow support a bit of a structure or racking that would support the racking of the panels. Whereas on a roof, we just have the racking that would be attached to the roof that the panels then would get attached to. So there's a bit more upfront cost on the ground mount, but long term, there's a lot of consideration on some of those advantages. The roof mount, it's really great if you've got an open roof. It's up out of the way. It's not in anyone's view, really. The cost, of course, is a lot less. And if we're not as concerned about the snow buildup on the solar panels, we do a lot of roof mount solar. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question is, what do we do about snow on the panels on a roof mount situation? If there is a heat trace cable, it's kind of like someone just creating, a heat trace and sticking it on there. I haven't seen too much of that just because it doesn't always work 100% either. It's hard to get that heat trace to actually get the heat to where it's needed to melt the snow. There's a lot of work involved in doing it. But again, if you're off grid and you really need to worry about the snow, there's no real simple solution other than getting a long pole and trying to clean them. If you're grid tied and you're looking at just lowering your hydro bill, whether it's through low displacement or net metering, especially net metering, most of the time we'll just tell our clients, don't worry about it. Because net metering is designed to do all of its work in the good months, the spring, summer, and fall. And we don't really care too much about the winter months because we've done everything we need to do when the sun is shining in the good production months. So even if there is sunny days and your panels were clear on a roof in the winter, the amount of sunshine that we have, it's just not worth the extra effort to try to clean them. However, if you're adding a battery and you are concerned about getting through a grid fail in the winter, that's when we need to reconsider some way of, maybe having at least a few panels of the array a little more accessible for snow removal. There is commercial induction to heat up the panels. They actually just reverse, instead of it being output, it's going back in and they will warm up and melt the snow. There's a lot of commercial solar that's installed flat or on a very low slope, 10 to 15 degrees. And in some of the very, very heavy snow countries of like Norway, Sweden, they actually have this technology in play because they can't have that amount of snow build up. If it was just a normal roof without solar, they would find a way to get the snow off the roof. So with solar, they're looking at melting it. But it's very expensive and it wouldn't be in a residential installation.
What did you call that again?
Yeah, sorry, what was that?
What was the name of that technology?
Of melting snow?
Right.
I don't have the name of it. Yeah, I don't have the name of of whoever makes the technology to melt the snow. Sorry about that. And yep.
Yeah. Is there any specifications as to the minimum size of the solar panel?
There's so many different makes and models of solar panels. It's a good question because sorry, the question was, go ahead. What was?
Is there a minimum size that the solar panels can?
Right. So So the question is there a minimum size of what the solar panels come in for size? The panels are made at all different sizes. So you kind of pick a panel that works. If you're doing a very small application, it can be a pretty small panel. Typically though, with what we're talking about today, today's panel will be somewhere in and around 400 watts. So 380, 400 watts, 450, 480, 500. That's typically what we're dealing with. And those panels still will be in different shapes. They'll be more rectangular or they'll be kind of more squarish, depending. But it's just the different makes, the different manufacturers. Yep, go ahead.
And how heavy are the panels? You talk about assessing the strength of the roof.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Most of your questions I won't have to talk about my next slides. So the question is the weight of the panels. And weight is, you know, you're thinking about the weight on the roof. The guys that work for me are thinking about the weight of what do I have to carry. So when you pick up a panel today, you know, they're getting to almost be the same size as a sheet of plywood. Not quite, but they're like 42, 45 inches wide by about 70 inches long. So we're getting pretty close, and the weight is very similar to like a 1/2 inch sheet of good plywood. So if you think about plywood and how it gets mounted to the roof, that kind of will answer that question. So you're basically taking that, spreading it over a square foot area, and then it becomes super light, lighter than a feather. Not quite. I'm just being a little sarcastic, but it's very light. So basically, when it comes to most people's, most homes, the trusses that have been engineered are almost always strong enough to handle the solar. But we always have to do, you know, what the engineers and what the building permit people want us to do, and we have to prove that it is. So then we need someone to sign off on it so that it's done properly. So that's, hopefully that answered that question. Go ahead.
Back to roof versus ground mount. We've got panels on a roof that are racked, raise them up to a steep angle so the snow will slide off. Is that going to be just as expensive?
Yeah, so the question is solar panels, ground versus roof. If we're on a roof, could we tilt them up a little steeper? Yes, we can, but you hit the nail on the head, is that it will cost a lot to do it. Because as soon as we tilt them up, now we've got wind shear and the ability to catch more snow. If we keep them flat, then we're not really doing much different to the roof. A flat solar panel on an asphalt roof is very slippery. It actually will shed the snow much quicker than an asphalt roof will. Actually, it's so much so that we have to pay attention to that when we're dealing with someone's home when they're not used to snow avalanching off the roof. So the tilting can be done, and we have done it, not so much in residential, just because the cost is quite high. And it's such a small project, whereas in commercial, it's bigger project, so we can kind of cover those costs because we're doing a lot at once. And for a much bigger hydro bill, it's just kind of how it works. So it can be done, but it can be tricky. And the extra cost versus just, you know, finding a different way to do it it's probably better to find a different way in some cases. But yeah. I think I finished that slide. Anyways. Okay, so yeah, as I kind of touched on a little bit, for most of our clients, when we were talking about that first slide is, you know, what's the interest in solar? A lot of these slides now are dealing with the fact that we can get rid of a hydro bill. And so therefore we're lowering the costs of the operating costs of the home or the small business, and there's a payback on that investment. And it does add also value to the home. So basically, one of the ways we do this is what I just referred to a little bit earlier is net metering. And so net metering has been around for a very long time. It hasn't really gained traction though until about really 5 or 6 years ago is when we really started seeing an uptick in net metering installations. And that's because our hydro bills were really starting to creep up at that time. Probably we would have seen a lot more net metering. I know I was getting ready to do a lot of net metering, but then the Wynne government went and put our nice little rebate on our hydro bills, which is not a real rebate, but we won't get into politics here. And so because of that rebate, it took us a little while for the hydro rates to get back to where people were going, hey, what can I do about my hydro bill? So net metering is all about basically using the grid as our battery. And so earlier on, I had said that solar is DC. And if we had a 500-watt panel on a roof that's not perfectly solar south and not on the perfect pitch, we will not get 500 watts from that panel. We will get less. And if it's cloudy, we're going to get quite a bit less. And so solar, it's really good in producing power, but it's not stable. And so therefore, we need a pacifier or a stability point. And you can refer to that kind of like a pond, whereas we're trickling water into the pond. We want a certain steady stream to come out. And because we have a reservoir, we can manage that stream. And so that's what we need to do with solar. We also need to invert it from DC to AC to be able to use it in our home. And then the net metering is also about exporting. And so because our home is connected to the grid via the meter base and the meter, we would in net metering have the ability that if we have overproduction, we can export that to the grid. And really, the grid is our battery at this point. It's the pacifier, it's the stability. And so we design the solar to, again, like I mentioned before, in spring, summer, and fall, not only to meet the home or the small business's energy requirement in hydro, but also to have that overproduction because we know we're going to fail in the wintertime. And so we basically know very quickly from, well, experience and some of the programs that we use what 1 watt of solar will produce here in Ontario when it's perfectly solar south on the perfect slope, and then we adjust everything for not perfect conditions. And so then we design that array knowing all of this information to actually hit the goal of 100% offset of the hydro bill. So that's really what we do in net metering. The reason why we usually try to go for 100% is if we climb on your roof and only put 4 panels up versus 12 panels, there's a lot of cost that's the same for 4 or 12. It's getting the trucks out there, getting the equipment, climbing on the roof, pulling the permits, doing all of that is the same cost whether it's 4 or 12. So really, if you can get more hydro bill gone, you're going to have a better install efficiency. Yep.
Would you be willing to read the labels on the diagram? I can't read them from here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so, yeah. The picture is the picture. So what we got is we've got solar generation up on the roof. There's an arrow pointing down towards the house. And that's because the solar power is going to go down into the home. There will be an inverter, as you saw from my other pictures, somewhere in the home. And then really what we're showing is the meter base there. So you're seeing a whole bunch of arrows coming out of that meter base. And that's because when we're talking about net metering, once we have the solar system built and once you have the permission from hydro to do net metering, and we have the system installed as per ESA code and everybody's happy, hydro will come and pull out the normal demand meter and put in the bi-directional net meter. And once that bidirectional net meter is in there, then it has the ability to record everything. It records when you're importing power because the solar is not producing, and it records when you're exporting power because solar is overproducing. And so really that's all those arrows are showing. The main center slide is net meter, net billing, solar generation offsets consumption, excess sold back, credit applied to future bills. And that's the thing with net metering is you're building up credits. So every kilowatt hour of export today with our net metering agreement today, which is a very good agreement, it's a 1-for-1 agreement, you will get a kilowatt hour back when you need it in the winter when we're underperforming. And so there's no money exchanging, there's no payment, it's not income, it's savings. And I was always told that if you can save $1 versus spending $1 to save, like to pay a bill, you're way ahead on saving $1. So anyway, so that's the thing about net metering. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a question about the payback. So discussion that there's a maximum that Hydro One would give credit for.
Yes.
Still up, there'd be a maximum, and you can't, even though you've produced additional stuff, you can't get it all back.
That's right. Yeah. So the question is payback. I'm not sure if that's really the right question, but I know what you're talking about. So to answer that, there is limits to how much you can push back, and there's a time restraint as well. So basically, from the first credit that's ever built, you will have a year to use up that credit. And if you don't use those credits up in a year, then they will just be rolled in and gone, and Hydro got them for free. The other thing when we're talking about maximum, what you're allowed to do, the cool thing for Ontario right now is that Ontario Hydro, will now accept 12 kilowatts as our starting point, whereas just a month ago it was only 10, and it has been 10. So we've just seen an increase. And so then when you're talking about your ability to export and whatnot, that is where we do have some limits. And that can be limiting for some of the very big users of electricity. I am one of them. I use 30,000 kilowatt hours or more annually. I am offsetting it 100% with solar. It's what I do. Yeah, that can be very, very challenging with only a 12 kilowatt AC nameplate is what it's called. Go ahead.
So if you already have the 10 kilowatts installed, do we have to do anything to a contract, or will it just roll up to 12?
No, yes, you will have to ask for an adjustment. So the question was, if you already have a 10 kilowatt contract for net metering, now that it is 12, do we need to do something to ask for the extra 2? And yes, you do. And it'll be kind of the same forms that you filled out to get the 10. And I guess it's a lot of paperwork because they'll charge you $800 to do it. So, that's right. But it's a lot of paperwork. I'm being very sarcastic.
What is it that has changed from 10 to 12?
Yeah, so again, so when we're looking at designing a solar system, we have the solar, which is one point of, and I'm just going to go off here a little bit. That's 8 panels on that roof. Let's pretend they're 500 watt panels. 8 times 4 is 3,200 watts. We would say that's a 3.2 kilowatt system. I did the math right. 8 times 40, 4 kilowatts. Yeah, half. There we go. So 4 kilowatts of power. And on that, we would probably put, let's say, a 3 kilowatt inverter. And that inverter is the AC nameplate. So if we expand this and we go to, let's say, 15 kilowatts of solar power and we put it on a 10 kilowatt inverter, that is our maximum power out. And we would choose the 10 kilowatt inverter because we know the Hydro One doesn't want more than 10. So that's our limiting factor. That's our choking point. And then we have the ability to put out 10. And so some of the systems that are existing, you may need to increase your inverter capacity in order to put out more. So it won't just be requesting more. You might have to do something to get a little bit more. Did that answer the question? Kind of?
So what's changing is the amount of power you can feed into
Yeah,
the grid.
push out, which will help us get a larger hydro bill gone. Yes.
Okay.
The question was down to when you're feeding it back to the grid, are they paying you the same rate per time of day that you are buying it at?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of ways of looking at that as well, because you can go to the ultra low time use of.
For example, at 4 to 9, they're charging
Yeah.
a high rate.
Yeah.
4 to 9, I can be pumping back in there. So I get the high rate back.
Yeah, well, so solar is produced quite often, pretty high between 11 and 5, 6 o'clock. So you will be making some very valuable credits during that time.
So
They are crediting you, yes. So yeah. Go ahead.
some of us who live in Almont are on Ottawa River Power.
Yeah.
Are their terms the same as?
Fairly, yes. Yeah, it is. As far as I know, yes. Yeah, we've had a few smaller utilities where their terms are basically the same, yes.
Can I ask you one follow-up question?
Yep.
Sort of follow-up. get to, I think our panel, our electrical panel, maxed out or close to it. Are you going to talk about that coming up?
Yeah, I will talk about it right now because we're just all over the place. So the question was, and I'm fine with that. That's actually how my brain works. I'm not a very set in stone kind of guy. But yeah, so the question was, I have a 100 amp service. If I'm doing solar, would I have to upgrade the service? I think that's the question, kind of.
Can we convert to solar?
Yeah.
Without
Yes.
upgrading our panel?
Yeah, so that's the cool thing. So there is a lot of when as an electrician, when we're looking at load demand factors, so even a brand new home, if I need to talk to my client and say, nice home, looks like the engineer spec'd a 200 amp panel, but it looks like you're trying to heat the whole laneway to melt the snow. You don't want to shovel. I think we're going to be, so there's ways of calculating the service that needs to go in a home. When we add solar, it's not the same calculation. So solar takes away from the load. So the cool thing about that is there is a calculation, but typically for most of our clients with a 100 amp panel, 100 amp panels or services aren't really installed anymore, just because of the way things are going. Electrification, the code doesn't allow a 100 amp service to be installed anymore. So that means your panel's a little older, and that means the bus of the panel is 125 amps. And so then when we do the calculation, we can easily put a 10 kilowatt inverter into that panel and have a fairly strong system getting rid of the hydro bill. So most of the time, solar will not, necessarily force a service upgrade. And of course, today with some of our new technology, with the BESS, a lot of them come with what we call bus protection. It's the transfer switch, basically. It's a very smart transfer switch, and it's rated at 280 amps. There's differences in the ratings of these things, but because we're connecting solar into that new smart transfer switch, most definitely we don't need to have a service increase. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jerry. Can we try to keep the questions now down? Go to the end unless they're really relevant. I know the slides Terry needs to get through as well.
I don't know the time at all, so. Yeah.
Just fabulous information. We've got about an hour more with Terry, so let's try to keep it balanced. Thanks.
All right, so.
Yeah, it is relevant to this actual slide. We just heard that hydro one cannot take.
Yeah.
We were turned down.
Yeah.
We don't even know what the criteria is. Maybe you ask them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good time to answer that question, or you tell me.
Terry will get into the other optional system, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and most definitely we'll answer that question for sure. So net metering, I think I've explained it fairly well for the time that we have. There is also now available to most Ontario residents, not in the Cornwall area, load displacement. And so we look at net metering is one way. Load displacement is the second very popular way, and it's become available to most Ontarians in the last year, just over a year now. You could have done it without, so that's not really correct. So we could always do load displacement, but the new program from the Home Renovations and Savings, so it's a Ontario government program. The quick, I'll refer to it as DER, actually. So it's all about the DER program, and it's basically the same paperwork and the same hoops and everything to go through as net metering. But when you are accepted as a DER, and so for you guys, that might be a way to get around this net metering. I'll talk about that later. The DER is really focusing on just getting rid of the load when the sun is shining for the most part. But if we add a battery, of course, we can do a little bit more than that. And so really it's load displacement. You're not exporting power. The forums are the same because they will put a bidirectional meter in just to monitor what's happening. And in case there was a bit of a slippage, you wouldn't get billed accidentally for that slippage, because without the bidirectional, it just sees production as billing. So your bill would increase. So same hoops, same everything. We just don't have the ability to export. And so many places in the world, as I stated before, we have a 1-to-1 agreement right now here in Ontario for net metering. It's a 1 kilowatt versus 1 kilowatt. That will change eventually. There's no doubt about it. Our rules and regulations and how our grid is run and the way things work, it's very possible that if you have a 1-to-1 today, you would be grandfathered in if changes were happening in the future. Eventually, though, at some point, you probably will have to change. But that won't be for quite a while. And so this is all about giving an option of not doing net metering and just getting rid of some load in the home to lower the hydro bill. So we won't achieve a 100% offset. It's not quite doable, but we can get up to about 70%. And that is when we also change to the ultra low. And so in order to get around the fact that we don't do very well here in Ontario in the wintertime, we will allow for a smaller array than the net meter to pick up the good slack in spring, summer, and fall, and do quite a bit of the work of charging. But it's mostly there just to kind of carry the load of the house during the sunshine. And then the battery will kick in and we use it aggressively as the sun goes down to further reduce our usage. And then in the wintertime, when we're most definitely already dark at 4 p.m. and someone switched to the ultra low, we're really going to count on that battery to make sure we're not going to use the very expensive power between 4 and 9 p.m. And the way that's done is that every night on the very low 4 cents a kilowatt hour, we will charge the battery fully, and we will use that battery every day to make sure we're not using expensive power. When all of that is combined together in a load displacement or a DER system, we can get up to about 70% in hydro savings. The cool thing about the DER or the load displacement program is it needs a battery to work really well. Without a battery, you're going to get maybe only 30% of your hydro bill, taken care of. And again, if the grid fails, there is no power coming from solar. So the battery is key, and there is funding for both solar and battery. But there has to be solar involved in the design in order to release funding for the battery. And that's why it's pretty popular right now, is there's up to $10,000 in funding for the DER system. And many of my clients do like the fact that they can have solar and battery to back up the home when a grid fails. Go ahead.
Am I right that subsidy is not available if you are going to be doing net metering?
That's right. Yeah. So that's a good one. So the subsidy, the funding, the question is it available for net metering or not? It's not available for net metering. The whole program even states that it recognizes that the ability to store up credits is already a very, very advantageous part of that program, and therefore no funding.
So given that, are you better off to forego the subsidy and just net meter?
Sometimes. So basically where net meter really, really makes sense, of course, is if you're starting to have a very high electricity usage in winter when we can't perform very well. So building up those credits to offset the usage in the winter with a net meter is key. That can be, we will point you in the right direction. But if your heating or your electrical load, is higher in the summer, maybe you have a pool, maybe you're just like your house to be cold, so your air conditioning load is higher, then the DER really, really makes sense, because it's going to be performing at the best time of when you're using the most power. But both can be looked at. Some of my clients will sacrifice the fact that the net meter might perform better long term. They want the funding up front, and that's because they're really, really interested in, yes, getting rid of some hydro bill, but really do want the fact that they can do whole home backup when the grid fails. Yep. Yes.
have electricity during the week?
Yes. So the question is that if you already have net metering in place, adding a battery to an existing net metering will get rid of the fact that when the grid fails, which is our battery, and it just failed, we have no way to produce power to back up the home. So adding your own personal storage, your own BESS, to a net meter, we call that hybrid net metering actually, and that's the next thing I would have been talking about, so perfect timing question. The hybrid net meter is there for adding a battery for getting through power outages, but also because we are limited to a now 12 kilowatt nameplate capacity, a larger user, we won't be able to get rid of all the usage when we're limited to that nameplate capacity. So then so what we're doing in that design is we're designing this solar very overpowered versus the AC nameplate. So we'll put 20 kilowatts of solar on the roof, and here we have an inverter that can only do 12. The purpose of that is multi-purpose. It is what I just explained earlier. There's many cloudy days. There's the fact that solar is very unstable. So we need a bit of oversizing solar versus the AC inversion to allow for the fact that if we perfectly match them on a cloudy day, we're not going to get the full 10 kilowatt out of our inverter because our solar is down. So always we have over design in our solar, but when we're getting aggressive and trying to get rid of a very large hydro bill, we'll be even more aggressive, and it's the new technology that allows us to do this. 17 years ago, we never went above 150% oversizing. So if it was a 10 kilowatt inverter, we never went higher than 15 kilowatts of solar on the roof. Today, we can do up to 24 kilowatts on a 10 kilowatt inverter. What's the purpose? You're gonna have to talk to me about that after if you want the details, but basically it's to get rid of a bigger hydro bill. But the other purpose is if we add a battery now, we can siphon that DC, it's called load shedding, and we can put that into the battery, and then as the sun goes down, we get more production again from the battery. So what was normally wasted, it had a purpose, now becomes more efficient because we're siphoning it into a battery and then using it again later. So there is really good consideration if you have an existing net meter system to add a battery if you're short on getting rid of all your hydro, or if you just want to be able to get through a power outage. There was something in my brain and I just lost it. Yeah, I'll have to circle back. But anyway, so that's, yeah. So load displacement, we had talked about net metering. Now we're talking about load displacement. And then there's the hybrid kind of net metering that I just explained. And it's not going to line up with any slides, but there you go. So we'll talk a little bit about actual battery storage then. Don't laugh. Anyways, so battery storage and backup, it's all about, again, I've pretty much explained it all just because of your great questions and some of the slides I already have. But it's really, connected into the system in two different ways, primarily AC and DC connected. As an electrician, I've always gravitated towards the DC coupled, and that's one of the reasons why we went with a solar edge system, because it's all DC coupled. When it's DC coupled, there's only one inverter, okay? And anytime we invert, we have losses in power, so we don't want to invert more than we have to. So having only one inverter to do the job of both solar and battery is less complicated, it's more efficient, not by crazy amounts, but it just makes more sense to an electrician. And the fact that we can DC load shed better than some of the AC coupled. Now, in the last 2 years, that has changed dramatically. There's very, very good AC coupled systems out there today. And quite often, we will AC couple to an existing solar edge system, just because the newer technology is a little bit better than what I have pasted on that slide. But then solar edge will be top dog in about 2 years when they upgrade their system, and it's just a bit of You kind of have to, it's almost like buying a new car, right? You buy a new car, it was the best at that year. 4 years later, there's something a little bit better. And I will talk about some of that too, how the technology is changing so much. But just know that we have DC coupled batteries and AC coupled batteries. The beauty of the AC coupled and the way it's really improved is, again, for that existing system, we can now very easily connect to it if the inverter wasn't an inverter that could actually accept a battery. It's not a hybrid inverter, and that's where that term here is, hybrid inverters. The only way we do that with a one inverter is it has to be a hybrid to be able to do the DC battery and the DC solar. So basically, the benefits of the battery, as I explained a little bit already because of that great question, it stores excess daytime solar energy, store less expensive power from the grid overnight. So on that low displacement, we can fill up that battery at a very, very low rate and then use that battery at a very expensive rate. Provide instantaneous backup power during outages. Again, with the newest batteries and inverters and smart transfer switches that I had mentioned, it is instantaneous. We're talking milliseconds. We're talking if you blink when it switches over, you won't even see it. So we have come a long ways in our backup ability. And the other nice thing about those load transfer switches, very smart transfer switches, is it does improve our daily household energy management. So we call it the brains of the system, and it will actually show the whole picture. If we're only doing net metering, we will get information from microinverters and string inverters, but the information is only showing generation from the actual solar system. It's not going to give you true information of what you see in a reduction on your hydro bill, because hydro will call that generation credits, but it's not true generation because a lot of the power has gone into your home to be used there first, and they only see the after product. So it will be lower than what the true generation is. And so that's a whole area that we call consumption. Okay, so we have generation from solar, then we have consumption in the home, and then when we actually have extra power and we're sending it out, it's called export. And when we don't have extra power and we need a little bit more, it's import. These very smart isolation, I can't think of the word, but anyways, these smart transfer switches, that's the beauty that they bring to the system, is that we can now really see in real time everything that's happening. So I think I covered most of that slide. Grid interaction together. Grid connection battery systems must comply. Yeah, so actually this little note here, if you can't see it, and he laughs, this is a really, really tricky spot. So it's really hard to keep up with the technology, even as a guy who's been doing it a lot. And I work with my ESA, Electrical Safety Authority, who has a lot to say about any of what I just talked about. Because it's grid connected, it needs to pass the electrical safety code. Hydro will not connect it unless it has that paperwork involved. And so it's really important that you don't buy a battery that will not actually meet that criteria as you move forward and get passed by ESA, okay? That is the biggest thing for most people is, you know, that battery. It's tricky stuff. As a master licensed electrician, the one reason why we went with SolarEdge right away is that it's an all-in-one system. It's made by the same manufacturer. The battery isn't made by so-and-so and the inverter made by so-and-so. It's all one. And therefore, ESA has a way easier time passing that. When it's two different manufacturers, you kind of have to prove that they've been tested together. And that's not always possible. So very important when you're kind of doing your own thing or doing a DIY, that's where you'll most definitely get burnt and have a lot of headaches trying to get around that. So much so that you might have to not use the battery and buy a different one. common home battery options, just quickly, of course, everyone recognizes Tesla. EP Cube is pretty good. They've already revamped, and they had a system that was called EP Cube 1.0. Now it's 2.0. It's only been around for 2 years and already a fairly hefty upgrade. The farthest one over is Sig & Store, Sig Energy. Very, very good system. Some of the cool things to recognize here, I guess that's why I was thinking of this slide, is that this is one battery for Tesla. And if we want to expand it, we need to add another battery. And I'm not just picking on Tesla, there's other ones that are the same. Let's say this is a 15 kilowatt battery. And for most of our clients who are low displacement, that window from 4 to 9 is about 15 kilowatt hours of usage in hydro. So this 15 kilowatt battery could do the job in that application. For some more rural clients who have maybe just installed an air-to-air heat pump and have done a few other things to electrify, have maybe a bit bigger usage, we would love to use a 20 kilowatt, but it only comes in 15. So then therefore we have to buy another 15, more costs that we really didn't need. Whereas here we have 5 kilowatt increments and they stack beautifully into a nice tower, whereas this one can get pretty, take up a lot of space. This is the very smart interface that I was talking about. That is the load hub. The other thing I didn't talk about, these load hubs, and it's a little bit on that line of do I have to upgrade my 100 amp panel, is that with this load control, so it also controls loads. This one here and the Sig & Store have 5 positions in that smart hub that can control big loads, such as hot tubs, other things that could make it hard on a smaller service. But the other beautiful thing is when we do have a grid fail, are they an essential load? Probably not. So now we can control the loads and extend our runtime with the battery to get through a longer power outage. Okay, and so these are really convenient for load control. Like I just said, if you're not going to be in your home because you went to sunny south in the wintertime, you can actually get those notifications and control it from your smart device, whether you're in Florida or I wouldn't go to Florida right now, but again, political, so we'll stay away from that. Yeah, but anyways, yeah. So that's some of the interesting things with battery is, we choose the battery to our clients' needs. There's a lot of companies that will just stick with one technology and kind of put all their eggs maybe in one basket. There's reasons to do that because you can get better buying power and therefore pass those savings on to the client. But in that case where I was pointing a little bit at the Tesla, is that might not be ideal because we only needed 5 kilowatts more, not 15. So then it might be better to use one that actually can hit the mark that we want and have some savings. So smart energy management. So the modern systems that I've been talking about, and am I getting close to being done? Okay. All right, so the modern systems, like I said, they can help us shift usage to lower cost periods. They can coordinate with the EV charging. So you may not have to buy the most expensive EV charger. You can buy a basic one and then count on the smart energy load controller to help us with EV charging. Anyways, just something to mention. Manage battery charging automatically. And that's the one thing I will then mention quickly is that, a lot of this battery technology and the smarts is coming from areas where they have a much more expensive hydro rate than we do. So California, Texas, a few other places in the world like Belize, very, very high expensive kilowatt hour usage. And so the programming is geared that way as well. So it's geared for tiered and all the different, rates that are out there. And it's very well programmed. AI is starting to get involved. It will learn how your home is using the power and it will adapt the best it sees to manage the power. So yeah, very smart. Topics often discussed, ultra-low overnight rates. I think I discussed it. Smart panels, well, that's kind of what we've just been discussing. Load management systems, EV charging integration. And so for many of our clients, getting back to the service upgrade, a lot of clients who have a 100 amp service, when they go to buy an EV and would love the level 2 or higher charging, that's where your 100 amp panel might need to be upgraded. If we add solar and some of that DC coupled solar, Solar Edge for sure, the one that I showed there, it actually has the EV charger connected into the inverter. And we use the same line that we ran for the inverter for the charger. And therefore, again, because it's connected into the system, we don't need to upgrade the 100 amp to a 200 amp so that you can charge your EV. And there's other ones out there that kind of do the same thing. Am I missing any questions? We're okay. Avoiding costly electrical upgrades. Well, there we go. Yeah, so we've pretty much covered that. Yeah, I don't think I need to speak more on that. As you can see, there's many, many systems: Tesla, Sig Energy, Solar Edge, EPCube, Fox. Sorry?
What is the battery technology?
Most of these are lithium iron. So the question was, what?
Which lithium ion?
Lithium iron phosphate. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Solar Edge, unfortunately, is still stuck with lithium ion, and there are actually a few others as well. I think Fox also is lithium ion. Yeah, well, it's the one that does have a bit more thermal runaway. That's the scary part about it. So we really moved to the lithium iron phosphate because of the fact that it has better battery chemistry. There are some limitations where the batteries can go. So I'll just speak to that because it just entered my brain. And ESA is always changing the rules. So again, when you're in this business, there's a lot of working with other people that are trying to think about things from a real safety, and we want to be safe. We've installed many, I would say, dangerous batteries in a dwelling before ESA realized and then changed the code. And now that we switched to more safer chemistry, thank goodness in the last code cycle, they realized, oh, the technology has changed. So we can now allow batteries to be installed in a dwelling a little bit easier. But basically, we do really prefer to put them in an attached garage. And that's just because, well, that's where the Tesla will be parked. If it's not a Tesla, it's a gas vehicle that could spontaneously combust. If a battery was to catch fire, being in that attached garage is a really safe place. There is a firewall that separates the garage from the home in a lot of our newer homes already from late 1990s all the way up till now. So attached garage is great. Detached garage is really good as well. And now we are starting to actually put them outside because the batteries come with internal heaters as well. And the cost of that internal heater has really come down as well. And I guess it's not just Canada, but most of this, again, was mostly being installed in California, Texas, and they're more concerned about heat. We're concerned about cold. So finally, we're starting to get batteries that are much more cold climate friendly.
Two, if I can. One is, I live in Mississippi Mills. Do you know anything about permitting?
Mississippi Mills. Yeah, so the question is, permitting, whether you're in Mississippi Mills or wherever, what's all involved in permitting, getting permits. So every municipality township is different. So most definitely for all of this, you will want to find out if you can do some of this. You found out you can't do net metering. Maybe you can do DER. And if you can't, well, you always could do behind the meter, but it's just really hard to go to behind the meter when you knew you could have got 10 grand to help cover cost. But you'll still have the same effect on getting rid of hydro. You're just not getting the funding. As long as your system's installed by yourself or by a licensed contractor and it has the ESA, certificates, you can do behind the meter. There's only so much the utility can do to prevent those things from happening, but you're going to want to make sure you're doing it right, because yeah. So.
Second question: how legitimate are people's fears about batteries catching fire, cars catching fire?
I don't know. I have yet to have a battery catch fire. I've seen pictures of Teslas catching fire, and what do you do to put them out? The lithium iron phosphate, that really does shed a lot of fear on that because of the chemistry. It's not prone to thermal runaway. It's all about thermal runaway. But again, if it does catch fire, how easy is it to put out? That's one of the biggest things. So most of our equipment comes that it will be self-contained, but the smoke that would come from it will do a lot of damage to your home. So insurance needs to be aware. But again, if it's the proper quality, proper labeled, equipment, that's where I think most of these horror stories come from not approved good quality equipment, let's be honest, and improper installation as well.
Is there any issue regarding distance of the battery from the home where it's?
Yeah, so again, just a follow-up question, is there any distance in where the battery can be for where the home is, using the power? We don't want the battery to be too far away because it adds cost, and it depends on the style of battery. I won't get into that because it's too detailed, but we usually like to keep it very close to whatever's controlling the battery. So in a garage or in a basement, we can, and as long as we build a fireproof kind of room, no problem. So we like it closer instead of farther away. 30 feet's no problem. Well, no problem, it's doable. Yes, go ahead.
I have a building code said that we couldn't have it installed inside.
Well, so it all depends. Again, there's a whole bunch of different ratings. UL, what is it? UL 5931047. All kinds of different ratings. And we just know from, from our code and from keeping up with, the powers that be that are making these decisions. We're buying from a reputable supplier. So we know we're getting the battery, and they will actually give us the paperwork for that battery because they know we will need to hand it to our ESA inspector. ESA inspectors are very, very just been kind of re-educated, and not that they know everything, but they know that they need to ask for this information and we have to provide it. So the supplier will provide us with the paperwork that's needed. Yep.
Question on the battery, you're talking about where to locate them. Is it better to locate them in space, wise, space?
Yeah, so where to locate batteries, is it better to install them in a controlled environment versus a non-controlled environment? Obviously, I would say yes, it's better to install it in a controlled environment. I think it will make the product last longer. But again, the technology is evolving. Many of our batteries now come with an enclosure that helps us with that uncontrolled space with internal heaters. So yeah, the technology is evolving again. Even a year ago, we didn't have many options for actually just installing them outside. We would have to go through a lot to create a little battery closet, insulate it, ourselves, but now that's changed. But yeah, most often, again, if we can put the battery in the attached garage with a newer home, that's ideal. Quite often the service is also very close to the garage. So, and we're always looking, at what costs are going to increase that is going to make our client think, oh, how come this got so expensive, right? So we do look at some of those things when we're looking for our clients, how hard is it going to be to install, whether it's the solar panels, the battery, or where the inverter will be located, or how we need to manipulate the power coming in. All of those things have an effect on the overall cost. Yep.
I was looking this up now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So which is probably the lithium iron phosphate. Yeah. Yep. Very good. Yep. So she just happened to notice one of the manufacturers that I had listed, still there, Fox ESS. It is a lithium iron phosphate battery. So, yes, then lithium ion, yes.
Continue to hold questions.
I'm getting very close, but yeah, good. All right, so next one, and just keep that question in mind. Common questions. Sorry, not funny. Do solar panels work in the winter? I think I kind of answered that question. If they're covered in snow, not very well. If they're not covered in snow, they work really, really well. In electrical, heat is loss. So if it's cold, the power flows very, very well. So really the best we can ever do with production is an end of April kind of day where we're sitting at 7-8 degrees, beautiful sunshine. We will have the optimum output from the panel. But they will work in winter, not very well when they're covered in snow. Does snow stop production? Yes, most definitely. Do panels need cleaning? So that's again where I was talking earlier about if you really do want to get some power from your solar to power up your battery, and it's all about having some battery backup for when a grid fails. That's we do have more risk in the winter time, so having the ability to clean some of the panels to get a little bit. If I was to look on my app on my phone right now, many of my systems, if they're built with 500 watt panels, the panels are probably producing about 100 watts right now. So from 500, we're down to about 100. A little bit brighter here right now. As it gets a little darker, we might drop down to 50 watts. But still, if we had, 20 panels up there, we're still catching, 1,000 watts of power, which, is not nothing. So that will help us, get through power outages a little longer. And will solar eliminate my hydro bill? Not completely. And that's a very good point. I've kind of gone pretty quick even with the net metering. The way we get rid of hydro bills, we are looking at the kilowatt hour usage on the hydro bill. And most of what your hydro bill is calculated will be looking at the kilowatt hours of usage as well. There's the different times of day, the rates change, but there is a portion of the hydro bill that is just fixed. It's not at all geared to kilowatt hour usage. And so that small portion we can't get rid of. So typically in rural Ontario, if we have a $250 on average hydro bill, we will drop that by at least $200. Usually the average bill will be somewhere about $35 to $40 to $45, depending. It's quite interesting how rural Ontario, what's considered, a little bit more expensive to get the line to your house. And so that's what affects how that minimum charge is calculated. But we can get rid of, on a large hydro bill, and even $250 a month user, we're getting rid of at least 90% of that hydro, so of the bill itself, so or more. So don't want to overstate that or overpromise, but it's possible to have a little bit more than that, and quite often it can be a little less. Choosing a solar company, I think that's one of the biggest things with our industry. For people who've been in it for a long time, we've seen it. It's we call it the solar coaster. So in good times, woohoo! Bad times, everyone leaves. Good times, everyone comes back. So basically, you do have to be a little bit careful, especially right now again, because solar is a hot topic. There's a lot of entrepreneurish type people, businesses coming in, and they just they're a little bit more focused on volume and not longevity. It's important when you're building your system to choose products that match what you would like. If you just want it to only, you're only looking at a 5-year window, then you could, use a bit cheaper products. Can be careful of ESA. But if you're really wanting, to affect your hydro bill for 10, 12, 15, 20 years plus, then pick products that will actually not give you headaches while you're trying to do that. And so a company that is not in it for a long time, you know, we all got to start somewhere, so it can be hard to figure that out sometimes. But just try to get a feel for what, you know, what the intention is, and maybe, you know, their experience is important. Yeah, because it's not an install and forget kind of asset. It's verify ESA approval. Again, that's just speaking to many of our products. They don't have the proper CSA stickers and other what do you call that? Anyways, the proper level of safety attached to them. Prices versus value. Yeah, remember, lowest price is not always the best. I will speak to like the DIYing solar. It's not complicated in many ways. It's really not complicated. It does get pretty complicated when you're trying to actually connect it to the grid. You know, you can experience and learn a lot when you're, you know, powering up your RV or a little hunting cabin. But when it's connected into your home and to the grid, and we have a lot of, you know, paperwork that's involved, that can be very hard. But then the ESA code can be very tricky. And a lot of the DIY sales stores, they're not always looking so much at what headaches you might have. They're trying their best. You know, I don't mean to pick on them either. But again, yeah, just be aware that it can be a little tricky on that side of things. We've helped or have had to help over the years, you know, even with microfits, people thought they could do the feed-in tariff program by themselves. And at the last minute, we have to come in and help them because they're going to lose their contract because they didn't get it done in time. And, you know, there can be some hoops to go through. So just be aware of that. Yeah. Yep, go ahead. One question.
What's the payback time?
Final thoughts. We're on final thoughts. So payment. So go ahead. Say that again.
The payback time on average system.
Yeah. So the question is really about payback. Payback. That question is very loaded. It's kind of a little bit like politics. The Liberals say their budget is this and this and this. The Conservatives say that's horse manure. You're way out to lunch. There's a little bit of that in solar as well. So it all depends. So I'll just simply say, when you're looking at payback, you're looking at your cost of investment. Again, your cost is going to vary on quality of the product, what you want to use. Just like your EV chargers, if anyone's aware of EVs, you can buy a basic charger, or you can buy a very advanced charger that will let you do anything and everything and see it from anywhere. So it's same with solar technology and battery technology. You can buy basic that will get you past ESA and get it done and do the job. But if you want different options, then you're going to spend a little bit more. So it's more like Cadillac versus, you know, economy. So those things affect payback. You also have to take your own take on what you think you're paying for hydro. So, you know, when we look at different tiered rates, it can be really hard to calculate what you actually spend on hydro. One of the easiest ways to find out what you're spending on hydro is just take the dollar amount and how many kilowatt hours you used and do the math. And that will actually tell you your average cost per kilowatt hour. Yes, yeah, but it's just you can get pretty detailed as well, but for simple rule of thumb, just do the math. There's your average kilowatt hour rate. And then what do you think the rates are going to do? Are they going to go up or are they going to go down? And then by how much? So many solar installers have different ways of calculating that rate. If I want to look really good to you, I'll say they're going to go up by, 10 cents a kilowatt hour every year, and we'll have a 3-year payback. Or we could be more realistic, and then we're going to have a longer payback. But typically, no doubt about it, a simple net meter will be under a 10-year payback if it's efficiently able to be installed, if we don't have to do extra work because of shading, if we don't have to do extra work because of a very steep roof. If it's a really nice install, it will be less than 10 years. If you're allowing for the fact that you're saving more money as time moves forward. And that's the value really of net metering, is you're saving more as the rate goes up. So it's an investment today that's actually growing. It's not a stale, dead investment. It's growing as the rates go up. Okay, and so load displacement is a little bit like that as well, but just not as much because we're not getting rid of 100% of the hydro usage. So it's a little less that way, but the enticement is the $10,000 that you might get to fund your system up front. So then if we allow for that $10,000, well, how much is that in savings of hydro? No matter what, when we add a battery, we will be way beyond 10 years. But the way we like to look at it is, if right now you have no solar and you have no battery and you do want to get through a grid failure, what's your option? You're going to buy a generator. And if you don't want to have to get that generator out of a garage, fire it up, plug it into wherever you're plugging into, and maybe it's just an essential loads panel, you've only got 2 or 3 circuits on it, or you're going to spend big money and put in a really nice stationary Generac generator. If you look at the cost of that generator and then compare that to battery and take the difference, then the payback is very, very good. So you've accomplished 2 things. You accomplished getting through grid outage, but you've also lowered your hydro bill. No noise, no crazy amount of maintenance, no propane usage if you're out in the country. Lots of different things to talk about there. But payback is a very loaded question. Yep. Coming. It can be used as a battery for sure. So right now there's many EVs. It's more about the EV car makers not allowing things to happen. The technology is now there to use fully the EV as a battery and to even lower your hydro bill. But here in Ontario, that's not quite legal yet. But we do have capability. The one product that I was showing there, the Sig & Store, does have a bi-directional charger. So it will allow the flow back and forth. And that can actually be used to lower your hydro bill. But it's not really accepted yet. But the EV, the battery itself, most definitely in a grid fail, we can connect the EV and extend your length of getting through. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah, I think there would be a way. You won't be able to get funding, like it wouldn't be through DER or anything like that. You do have to have some kind of a charger that can do that. So it's either a bidirectional charger from a bidirectional EV charging manufacturer, or it could be one of the smart hubs that I was looking at here that can do that. Because no matter what, you need to isolate what you're doing away from the grid. So there has to be a way to isolate. And so with some of that technology I was just showing, it would be possible. Yeah. Right. Yep.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about more equipment or if it was like using an app on your phone.
Yeah, it's using it. Sorry. Yeah. So the smart home, the equipment that's in there is all the equipment I just listed. And most of this equipment actually is monitored, or you look at it and change settings and do things on your smart device, on your laptop. Some have both. Some will have little arrows on a screen that you can, manipulate things. But most people now want it on an app on their smart device. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. It's all good.
I appreciate that we are going to about to open up a flood of questions, which is great. I'm thrilled. We have about 15 minutes. I don't want to exclude hearing from Rachel because she's going to tell you about the funding, right?
And that's important.
You don't want to hear about
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
So we'll carry on for 15 minutes with questions. Can you make an effort if somebody asks a question that's sort of relevant to your question? Can you let it glide? And Terry, as you can see, is just fabulous. So we'll try to do what we can in the next 15 minutes. Then we'll have Rachel, and then there should be maybe another 10 minutes or so for more questions and answers. Or if everybody's prepared to hang on for a little longer, we can continue to address more questions. Is that agreeable? Yep. Okay. Open up the flood.
All right. So are you together? Okay. Well, that was a loaded question. I have to be careful. Sorry.
This is a question about smaller installations. If you live in the country and Lanark Islands, outfitters are frequent.
Yes.
You can get light with candles and lamps.
Yep.
You can get heat with a wood stove.
Yep.
You can get food with a cooler, but you can't do anything about water because the pumps are electric.
Yep.
Is there any way to use solar just to bypass that electric to bring water into your house?
Yep.
Your whole house.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a really good question, and it really pertains to most rural Ontarians. I live rurally as well. Obviously, one way to do this is, a portable generator or even the stationary generator again. Another way would be solar and battery. But again, like I was explaining, it would be a little bit of solar. It's all about design. When is the power going to fail? Maybe winter, we're not going to get much from solar, so then the battery has to be big enough to cover your usage, but we can calculate that. It would almost be like an off-grid scenario, very, very, low profile. But when you looked at, putting in a portable generator and just putting an essential loads panel and, electrically, as an electrician, I could do that for you. The cost of that versus what I would have to do now for solar and battery, the battery and solar is going to be a lot more expensive. So that's the only thing. But if you're really, really wanting that, it's more doable than it's ever been before. Like a Jackery. There's portable units out there. Yep. So there's many good portable units that also have portable solar. It's portable, but you could install it kind of stationary ish, but your solar would most definitely have to be like plugged in for a long power outage. So if you're good with just short power outages using a mobile battery, that can be a very good way to do it. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, first of all, for all the information.
Yep.
One of the questions is, what is, step number one obviously seems to be call somebody like TLC Solar.
Most definitely. Sorry. Yeah.
The question is, could you outline, please, what ends up being within TLC Solar's job versus my job?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, if you're looking into this and you want to pick somebody to help you, what are the jobs? What's all involved? So basically, if you're picking a company that's doing the design, the install, commissioning, and also maintaining the system, some of this very high-tech stuff, it will do a lot of it by itself, but every now and then you will need a bit of tech support. So, having someone around to help you who installed the system, that's good. But basically, our slogan is, of course, we want to make solar simple, or solar and battery simple. Most of what would have to be answered is technical. So really, we're going to do most of the heavy lifting, and it's mostly just signatures from you. Yeah. Very technical. Yeah. Yep. We facilitate all of that. When it comes in, we send you an email saying, woohoo, you've been accepted. Sign over here, kind of thing. And then we put it back to them. And yeah, that is in. Yes. Yeah. The home renovation program, it's an awesome program. There's really good funding there. But of course, the one thing that us designer installers love about the program is that we have to do a lot of work for you to get the funding. So. Yep, most definitely. Yep, most definitely. There's leasing, but if you lease, then you can't get the funding because you don't own it. You need to own it. Yeah. Go ahead. Nice.
My contract is coming to an end with ISO.
Yep. Yep.
How easy or difficult is it to convert that system, my existing system,
Mm-hmm.
to say the net metering
Yeah.
or hybrid?
So his question is about the older feed-in tariff program, and specifically the microfit, which is 10 kilowatt AC nameplate and smaller. So it's the nice small systems, what we're doing quite often for net metering on a residential home. How easy is it to transfer from what it's doing today, which is basically a generator feeding to the grid? You're getting paid for what you're producing, which is income, to doing net metering, which is just getting rid of a hydro bill. So it just all depends. Is it in the middle of a cornfield and the house is not even close, or is it on the house or near the house? Very easy to transfer or to manipulate it and make it do something else. Is there anyone else with microfits in the crowd or fits? Yeah. So just know that, yeah, as these contracts come to the end, that's the majority, actually, just because we did it for so many years, that's the majority of the systems that we are currently maintaining, that we installed back 15, 16, 17 years ago. We're very aware of the ISO and the newest happenings. Just know that for the microfit, there will be a chance to renew. It's not going to be at the rate that you signed up at. And one thing to clarify about the microfit and the feed-in tariff program is that, it's referred to as the lucrative deals. Just know that today, getting rid of a hydro bill, doing net metering, we have almost the same payback as what those lucrative deals were 15, 17 years ago. And that's just because of what I explained. Hydro rates are going up, the cost of the technology, the solar and everything is coming down, and there's some incentives. And it's a really good investment, just like the microfits were in the day, with actually a lot less risk, because when we were looking at investing back in the day, this government likes it, what would the next government do, right? So there's always that too, but anyways. So yeah, there's options there. What I will say is, if your microfit, if you know what the production is and your home is currently using more, or might, because you're going to put in an air-to-air heat pump, who knows, you might want to look at what we call repowering it, and getting that thing to produce more, so that when it does switch over, it actually covers 100% of your home's usage. So if you're interested, we're good to talk to on that front as well. Yep. So go for it. Oh. Oh, okay.
We have some walk-ins, so if we don't have your email address, make sure to write it down there's a piece of paper there at the end, and that way we can send you the slides and presentation, just for those of you that might need it.
Okay. No, I'm just saying. Yeah, it's all good. Go ahead. Yes.
So talk about it as use this for backup power when power goes out, and I know it depends on how you use power, but that were you talking about a day it would cover, or something like an?
Oh, good one. Yeah. So again, so the question is, when we're using battery and solar, or even just battery by itself, how long will it last? How much can it do? What can it back up? Again, it's all about, how much what your budget is, what you're trying to back up. If you just want essential loads, like the one client was speaking about, it can be very small, and just do that, and it would be sized to whatever your comfort level is. In a home where we're trying to whole home battery backup, again, we're looking at, your instantaneous usage of what's going on in the home. Every day when you're using power in a home, there's fluctuations, and every now and then there can be spikes. The cool thing about the new technology is we can handle very big spikes for a pretty good duration. We can easily start like a 5-ton air-to-air heat pump actually now, and if we have a strong enough battery, we can run that for quite a while, but that's going to be very costly. But again, we would size it to whatever the client's comfort level is. Most of our clients will make the comment, well, we consider heat to be essential, but you could do the stove, wood in a fireplace or a stove, and not have to worry about your heating. And then with some of that smart technology, we would put your electric furnace or the air-to-air heat pump maybe not on essential. It'll be an automatic not essential because we know you're going to start the wood stove. And that will give us a lot longer time to run off of a battery, and we don't have to spend as much money. So we can customize that totally. Yep.
Do you have any clients that just use a battery to store the electricity when power's at a low level?
Yeah, we always talk them out of it though. No, but it's so right now that DER incentive, just even putting one panel on the roof will free up $5,000 worth of funding for the battery. Yeah. So we do have clients where, we're doing that. We're just putting one 500-watt panel on the roof and then freeing up $5,000 to offset the battery. Where that kind of happens a little bit is they're just not interested in solar. From any reason, lots of reasons, but they want the battery, and the battery can do most of the heavy lifting. And so if they're in a very shady environment, cottages, let's say, are not always fully exposed. They're kind of in the woods near a lake, beautiful. We don't want to cut down those trees. But that's where a battery can come in and do all of the heavy lifting. And just to get that $5,000 in funding is... no, that's right. No funding for just battery only. And if you have an existing system and you want to add battery, the funding will not apply to that system. So if you already had a behind the meter, net metering doesn't qualify for funding. But if you had a behind the meter and you wanted to add battery because it's already an existing system, it's only for new installs, the funding.
Thank you for now. Okay, Rachel now, who is our newest addition on our Neighborhood Climate Concierge program, is going to talk about the funding that's available for this and other programs and through our concierge program too. Okay, thank you. And then in whatever she'll finish, she'll be fast, and then we can get back to more questions.
I'm doing quick housekeeping, quick self-promotion, quick funding. I'm going to be 10 minutes tops, and then we'll have like maybe 10 more minutes to talk to Terry or mill about with each other. So I'm Rachel. I'm a program coordinator with Climate Network Lanark. If you're here, you know about Climate Network Lanark. We are a grassroots, not-for-profit organization. That means that we're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to make a change, and we're trying to do it in ways that work for you. So your participation and your feedback really, really matter to us. One of our current programs, and the program that is doing this work, is Neighborhood Climate Concierge. This is a small groups program where you are supported through your home retrofit journey. Things like solar panels always get so many folks in the room because it's kind of glamorous, and Climate Concierge will walk you through those parts that aren't quite so glamorous but are also really, really important, like insulation. That doesn't get people knocking down the doors, but it's actually really, really interesting, and it's really fun when you kind of get in the room with an expert who is passionate and wants to talk about it. So concierge is a low time commitment. It's usually run over the course of about 6 months with one meeting a month, and it's about 2 hours. And each of these sessions focuses on a different area. One session is devoted to funding and kind of carbon accounting. Then we go through energy assessments. Again, very glamorous. What should you expect? What should you be looking for? How do you interpret your results? We do insulation and air sealing. We do heat pumps, and then we do solar panels, and we do resiliency. We have different experts for each of these sessions, so different clusters get different folks in the rooms. And also, if you come to workshops, you might get a different expert in your concierge group, or you might have the benefit of hearing from Terry twice, which is great. We also walk you through the financial programs once in a kind of dedicated session, and then we try and kind of repeat them throughout as we go through the specific material for each session. So we cover things like the energy affordability program, which is income dependent, but most of its offerings are completely free, and that's anything from insulation, heat pumps, to appliances. Then there's also programs that have grants and rebates, like the Home Renovation Savings Plan that Terry was talking about today. And then there's also Better Homes Lanark, that is a low interest loan. So one of the points of concierge is that we help you stack these programs. We help you navigate which programs are going to be best for you and for your home and your specific circumstances, for you to get maximum value and affordability of your retrofit. For the solar specific supports, Terry already talked about it quite a great deal, but the home renovation savings plan is a great starting point if you're looking at low displacement. So the home renovation saving plan has 2 streams. The one that you will be looking for if you're doing solar is stream 2. Stream 2 does not require an energy assessment, which is not to say you shouldn't get one, because they're incredibly valuable and important for understanding your home. But you don't need one for stream 2. As Terry was also saying, you do need to do the solar and the battery pieces together. You cannot just go for the battery, but you can be strategic about this. So they will fund up to 1,000 kilowatt hours for solar panels, $1,000 per kilowatt hour capacity in your installation. And then the same sort of system for the batteries, $300 per kilowatt hour capacity in your batteries. So I did the quick math on the Tesla one that you were talking about. So they would pay for up to $4,500 on that. Not recommending that one per se, but
there is a maximum of 5.
Yeah, for each.
Battery and 5 for solar.
Yeah. I'm trying to go so fast because we had fun with Terry. And then there's also Better Homes Lanark. Just for my own interest's sake, by a show of hands, has anyone here not heard about Better Homes Lanark? Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so it's available to all residents of Lanark County, except for people who live in Smiths Falls due to the Great Historical Division. So if you're in Smiths Falls, sorry. But there's a similar program in Ottawa. There's been similar programs elsewhere. It's a really incredible program where basically you get a low interest loan of up to $40,000 if your retrofit plan can achieve a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And this loan is added to your property tax bill. This is interesting in a lot of ways. Firstly, it has the potential to stay with your house rather than staying with you. Secondly, the idea is that as you're saving the money month to month in your bills, that's going to offset your loan. And this program is stackable with home renovation savings. So if you're able to get that full $10,000 rebate on your installation with home renovation savings, you're paying off $10,000 of that loan right away. And the other really interesting piece about this program is it's not quite so prescriptive in terms of like what it will fund. It can be really dependent upon your home. So you get assigned an energy coach when you sign up for Better Homes Lanark, who will walk through your needs, what your home's looking like, what you're currently heating with, and what you want to happen, and help you work towards that 30% reduction point. If solar is a priority for you, hitting that 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions might be tricky, but if you're pairing that with a heat pump or if you're pairing that with insulation upgrades, you could very easily hit that threshold. Have I said everything? Or windows? Have I said everything about Better Homes Lanark? My mouth is working faster than my brain is. Yeah, we'll talk about it a lot if you're in concierge. So this is what people who have participated in concierge have said about it. As someone who's recently joined the team and has been running some sessions, I think being in the room with the experts is so, so, so valuable. When you come into a concierge session, you have someone who's been working in the field, is an expert in their field. They're hearing about what's going on with your home, any problems you're running into, any like head scratchers, and they're telling you what they think. You know, it's not someone trying to sell you on their service. It's not trying to get you to give them any money. They're giving you industry-specific advice. And you also learn from your neighbors. If your neighbor had a terrible experience with a contractor, they'll tell you about it. We keep a list of these things. And likewise, we keep a list of the contractors that your neighbors have had great experiences with. How can you help us? spread the word, share our social media posts, share flyers, tell your friends. If you have a community organization that you're a part of that you think some people might be interested in us, invite us, let us do our spiel, and show up to these workshops, join the concierge clusters. Your numbers, the seats that you take up, show our value to our funders and our community partners. The other thing that you can do is complete this survey. I want you to complete the survey so badly. Everyone has such a great intention about completing a survey. I know I always do when I attend things like this, but then you get home, you're busy, you don't complete the survey. So now we're resorting to bribery. Everyone who completes the survey, your email will be required to complete the survey, but we won't connect that to your data to anyone. And once you've completed a survey, we're going to do a draw out of just the people who are here in the room. So it's just this workshop will get you a $20 gift card to your local coffee shop of your choice. So please, 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 it's so, so important because we are having to constantly show our partners and show our funders that what Concierge is doing is making a difference and that people are learning and that people are benefiting from our programming. And we're a tiny team. So please, 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 please. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to just say a couple of things and then we can just open things up for more questions and answers. So yes, we are going to send you the slides. Do keep an eye out for the YouTube posting on our YouTube channel. Again, just look us up, Climate Network Lanark. We are certainly hoping to be able to do an off-grid workshop probably in the fall. Keep an eye out for that. If you want to know more, just make sure that you sign up with Sadie there and make sure that you're on CNL's email list. So you'll get that. Again, it's free. It's basically a monthly email newsletter and you'll hear about other workshops that we're doing. Need to very definitely, clearly thank our two sponsors for this. One of them is the Better Homes Lanark program through Lanark County. They are a partner with us in our Neighborhood Climate Concierge program. And the other is the Peter Gilgan Foundation. And I am not being paid to do this ad at all. Peter Gilgan is the man behind Mattamy Homes. The Peter Gilgan Foundation is one of the 4 family foundations in Canada that is committed large money to climate action. So we're very pleased to be one of the recipients. I will say particularly that they approached us. They knew about our pilot. They had given us a little bit of money for that. They were so impressed that they came to us and said they wanted to help us scale up. So, yeah. Yes. And then this is not promo for Mattamy Homes, but they have recently come out with a whole program to address climate in their new builds. So you might want to have a look at that. And then finally, I'm going to finish up with when you leave here, and no rush, if you can help us by returning a chair to the chair stacks, that would be really helpful. And then finally, Climate Network Lanark really is, oh my God, a low cost, grassroots organization, and we truly are in desperate need of funds. So there's a donation jar at the desk. If you haven't, please do. You can go online and make another type of donation too. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Again, please fill that out.